Today on CityCast Chicago, we're discussing the mishandling of data in Chicago's new arrival shelters, the rise of whooping cough cases across the state, and we've got some great events to add to your calendar this weekend. Stick around to the end to hear more about them. Joining me to break it all down, Emmeline Posner, an investigative reporter with Investigative Project on Race and Equity, and Katrina Pham, the audience engagement reporter with Borderless Magazine. It's Friday, December 13th. I'm Jacoby Cochran, and this is what Chicago's talking about. Morning, my friends. Welcome to the podcast, Emmeline. Lovely to have you here this morning.
Thanks so much for having me.
And welcome back, Katrina. Glad to have you in the building.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Every week, Monday through Friday, we're talking about all things Chicago. And I mean all things, all neighborhoods, all issues. We got a deep bag. This week, we talked with family and friends who lost loved ones to gun violence. We discussed City Hall's latest budget proposal. We talked about some of the best things we ate in 2024, and we followed a religious pilgrimage to the burbs. And along the way, we sprinkled in events across the city, a whole bunch of inside jokes, and so much more. And since it's Friday, we're rounding up some of the city's biggest stories with a couple of our friends. But before we get into the roundup, I gotta say thank you to everybody who has joined us during our end of the year membership campaign. All week long, we've been telling you how much member support helps us build a sustainable future for this small but mighty team. Because don't get it twisted, every single day, it's the four of us locking in, me, Simone, Michelle, and Sydney, to bring you the best podcast and the best newsletter possible. And we do it not only because we love these jobs, but because we ride for the city of Chicago. But I also want to drive home that we also do this for and with you. Your emails, your DMs, your comments, they not only motivate us, but your texts and voicemails, they give us new ideas, new perspectives, new angles to consider. When you stop me out on the street or at G-Man Tavern during a holiday party to tell me how much you appreciate the work we do, right? Not just the work that I do, but the work we do. I really can't put into words how much that means, but I do want you to know how much it means that you show up for us every single day, every couple of days, whenever you got time. Today is the last day of our membership campaign, which means it's also the last day for you to sign up, not only for the ad-free episodes, the special events, emails, but it's the last day you're going to be able to receive the exclusive CityCast Chicago tote bag as a thank you for joining. You can head over to membership.citycast.fm. That's membership.citycast.fm. It's the perfect way to show your support for the team. I want to be clear. This is not the last day ever to sign up to become a member. Because if you sign up next week, next month, you're still going to get the ad-free listening and the special events email. It's just the last day to get that fly-ass all-black tote bag. All right? That's all I'm saying. The podcast newsletter is still going to be free. You can still become a member at any time. But if you want the bag, go on and sign up now. All right. Let's get into today's episode. On Wednesday, we sat down with our friends from The Infatuation to talk about some of the best things we ate across the city in 2024. And I want to bring that question to y'all. Emmeline, I'm going to start with you. What's one of your favorite things you ate in the city this year?
Oh, that's a tough question because I love to eat good food. But if I gotta think to the most recent thing I had that knocked me off my feet, it would have been the breakfast sandwich at Kasama. I love everything that Kasama serves. Oh my gosh, I would go there every day if I could.
Our producer, Michelle Navarro, has talked about that sandwich for over, I feel like what's been a year now. I still have not gotten over there. I have just seen pictures, immaculate reviews, TikToks, and then I see the pictures of the line, and I've already been told that there are ways to like get around it, to like plan it in your day, in your adventure. And I still haven't gotten over there. So it's definitely on my 2025 short list. And you have just solidified that for me. What was your favorite part of it?
Oh, that's the first bite, right? Because you have the whole rest of the sandwich left, right? I was sitting at a table full of people who were very generously sharing bites of their breakfast platters too. So, I mean, you really can't go wrong.
Katrina, over to you. What's one of the best things you ate in the city this year?
So I really love eating sweets, but sweets that aren't too sweet. So I tried this strawberry matcha mousse cake from Team Bun Bakery. They don't have a physical location, but they were at this pop-up Saturday market in Argyle, hosted by Hi Bayo. And that was I love matcha and I love sweets, and it was so good. And it has like the graham cracker like crust. It's like strawberry matcha take on like cheesecake, but it was so good. Can't stop thinking about it.
I like sweet and too sweet on top of too sweet. And so I appreciated your description. I need to kind of diversify my palate. Man, I have been thinking about this slice of pie that I've had from Justice of the Pies for the last few months. It was this caramel peach pie. And I'm not really a pastries person, like buns, pies, cakes, but that is one I've probably had maybe 4 or 5 slices in the last 6 months. I keep finding an excuse. I'm always just like, my mom needs to try this. My team needs to try this. My friends need to try this. That I have just created more and more excuses to pull up on them. Do you have anything? Did you try anything else while you were there?
I just got the mousse cake, but they were doing like a little giveaway. So when I bought the cake, I was able to play claw machine game, and I got a set of Pokemon cards. So I didn't try any other food, but I got Pokemon cards. So
hey, you doubled up on your expectations in the best way possible. If you are new to CityCast Chicago, every single week we like to bring in these amazing voices from across the city to talk about some of the biggest stories that were on maybe the front page of our newspaper or top of mind. We talk about some stories we want to make sure we bring attention to and shine some light on. And we finish every single episode off with some good news to send you home with some events, some good energy, some joy when you turn off this podcast and switch on the rest of your day. We are going to start off with an investigation that you two led on into a federal complaint against favored healthcare staffing, one of Chicago's largest contractors running new arrival and migrant shelters in the city over the last couple of years. And when I say largest, I mean they have charged the city north of $362 million in their time here. Who wants to start kind of setting the base of this investigation for us, kind of finding out how did this first come across you all's plate?
Sure. Yeah. We were reached out to by 2 former case managers who had worked in the shelter system for Favorite. And they had filed a complaint with the Department of Health and Human Services about their concerns over what they saw. And what they saw was what they said was seemed to them to be systematic mishandling of sensitive data. So that includes medical data, case information for asylum cases, legal information, gender, sex, contact information, just you name it. And what they said was that this information was not kept secured, and it was not communicated on secure platforms, and they had a lot of concerns about the implications of that for residents whose data was kept in that way.
When we say mishandling, are we saying like file cabinets overrun, people sort of dropping like paper files, like computers that are just open? What does it look like to maybe mishandle the data for tens of thousands of people who are kind of quickly being moved through these shelters?
I would definitely say it's a mix of both, like the sort of physical data that people have, but also like online data or digital data. So from what the former staffers told us, they had a few instances, for example, where they kept migrants' data on physical files that were printed out, and there were times when some of those files would go missing and no one would really know like who took them or where they went, and it had information about migrants' immigration applications or their statuses in the immigration court, how they're moving forward. And with the digital data, that was all housed on what they said was an Excel sheet that was able to be accessed by, all of the favorite staffers. And in that Excel sheet is kind of like this census of, okay, here's every single migrant's name. Here's all of their contact information, all of their medical information, all of the information about their immigration cases and whatnot. And so on those Excel sheets, anyone who was a favorite staffer could access them, is what the former case managers told us. And even though the former case managers were not working with favorites anymore and not working in the city shelters, they showed us that they could still access those documents and those sheets. And any other or most other systems, there's a sort of demobilization process. Like right when you stop working at a job, they take everything from you. Like they take your devices, take your documents, make sure you don't have private information from your job with you after you leave. But these former case managers showed us they could still access those documents, and all of those documents had sensitive information. And so that's why it was a concern for them and why they filed a formal complaint with the Office of Civil Rights.
As we include in the article, one of the staffers said that, she arrived on the job and was told to use her personal device. So that's another level of mishandling, accessing that range of information from a personal device makes it so much more vulnerable, right, to compromise. If your computer's security is compromised, or someone else is using your computer, for instance, there's just a lot more ways that other people could get their hands on that information.
Can you all speak to how individuals who reside in these shelters may have found out that their data was leaked?
So the two former staffers, they filed that complaint, they say, on behalf of around 60 current and former shelter residents who have received unsolicited letters, texts, phone calls. They've received extortion threats, just all number of really scary things from unknown numbers and then unknown people, they've said. That's included from loan companies, receipts of purchases on PayPal under their contact information, so signs of identity theft and other forms of scamming and phishing.
Emmeline, I want to stay with you for a second. You published a report on November 19th that also looked into Favorite Healthcare's track record. And so their name may be familiar to some of the people listening. What are some of the other complaints that have been lobbied against, again, an organization that has gotten $360+ million of our tax dollars?
Right. Yeah. So in that investigation, we looked at complaints that were filed by migrant residents of the shelters in 2023. And a majority, I think around 2 in every 3 complaints filed was about staff misconduct. So identifying some form of misconduct by favorite staff people working in the shelters, including everything from simple cruel treatment, abusive language, to restriction of food, water, milk for young children, allegations of sexual harassment. So it really covered a range. And just a note, a lot of criticism and attention has gone to Favorite, but I think it's important to remember that Favorite is the city's contractor. Favorite is working for the city, and the city is capable of overseeing and instructing its vendors to change practices if it deems it necessary, right?
100%. And they're not the only contractors that have been under scrutiny over the last few years. Katrina, you talked about what happens next for Chicago's shelter system back in October. I want to know not only what does the maybe day to day for the shelter system, what is that going to look like? But I mean, with them kind of quickly shutting down so many of these new arrival locations, does that mean accountability for a lot of these complaints we've been talking about is just going to maybe get pushed down the road or off to the back pages?
I can't say for certain what's going to happen with the complaints, but based on Emmeline's reporting, for example, we've seen already how complaints in the past get pushed down the road and get neglected for months at a time. And so I can't imagine what it's going to look like now that the system is shutting down and merging with the city's existing homelessness system, because that's a system I believe is already under-resourced, underfunded. So when you add the needs of thousands of new arrivals who have come to the city, I can't imagine what it's going to look like to try to handle both populations of unhoused people and migrants.
Over the last few months, as you've been doing these investigations, how has the city responded, if at all?
For that first investigation we published, we shared our findings before publication with the city's Department of Family Support Services, and they didn't dispute any of our findings. They said that they had recognized the need to improve their response to complaints. They said it had gotten better in recent months. However, the city has also refused to release more recent records, so we've been unable to analyze them ourselves, and I think that throws the city's commitment to transparency and accountability in this system into question. Katrina, do you want to talk about city response to the data article?
My answer is kind of short. I didn't really get a response. We reached out multiple times, and one representative from the mayor's office said they would get back to us, and we haven't heard anything since then.
Well, as the city moves to consolidate its new arrival shelter system with its ongoing unhoused system, I think concerns have mounted not only with how did the city spend these hundreds of millions of dollars. There have been so many criticism and concerns about who was the recipient of this money. And as people sort of wash their hands and sort of go back to maybe business as usual, I fear that so many people are just going to want to put these like 2 years of complaints behind. And I hope that's not allowed to happen. I appreciate both y'all and the work y'all have done on this investigation. We will drop links in the show notes to all of the stories we talked about. Another story I want to talk about this week is the local spike in whooping cough cases that we saw in November. Illinois currently has the fourth highest number of cases in the country, according to the CDC's figure, with only Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and New York ahead of us. Emily, can you shed some more light on this? I feel like people don't want to talk about the rise of respiratory illnesses in the last few years, and yet the data is showing on a number of fronts that is exactly what's happening.
Yeah, according to the Sun-Times, which has been reporting on it, we're seeing the highest levels for whooping cough in the state since 2012. And I think, the reporters note that vaccination levels are down a little bit among children, I believe, which is a post effect of the pandemic when people were not keeping up with vaccinations. You just had a lot going on. So it's a good reminder that we should all be checking up on our vaccinations and masking in public if we're not feeling good. I think those are the two most important things that public health workers are highlighting right now.
100%. Whooping cough, also called pertussis, is highly contagious. It's been reported that 1 in 3 babies under a year old with whooping cough are ultimately hospitalized. At the end of the year, we were at about 1,900 cases across Illinois and a 12-year high at 265 reported cases in the city of Chicago. Man, this is a really unfortunate news story, but as it's pointing out, there are a connection of variables that is leading this from better detection to, as you said, just sort of people falling behind on vaccinations, as we've seen a rise in attention for vaccinations around things like COVID, flu, RSV. And so I think it's like you said, it's an important reminder for people that, there's a bunch of vaccinations on the please get list. And so we will drop a link to this story in our show notes. Katrina, over to you. Last Sunday, hundreds of Chicagoans were out celebrating at Congress Plaza due to the overthrow of Syrian dictator Bashar al-Assad. Can you talk a little bit more about the reaction?
Yeah, a lot of folks in Chicago who are reacting to the overthrow of Bashar al-Assad were really excited, for what's happening next. I think a lot of people have been intimately impacted by this violence, and many of whom came here as refugees because of the conflict in their homes and fleeing political persecution. And a lot of folks who are here in Chicago have spoken out about how they have family members, for example, who were jailed in Syria for speaking up against the Assad regime, which has been in power for, I believe, half a century now. I think people are excited to see this change, and have hope for the next steps for their home country potentially returning.
Mm-hmm. I mean, back in March 2011, I was a sophomore in college. I was on my university speech team. And one of the events I competed in was called extemporaneous speaking, where essentially you were given a set of questions about world events. It could be local, national, international. And at the time, we had already seen the uprisings in Tunisia from December 2010, which many scholars would say was the rise of what's been labeled the Arab Spring. We saw the uprisings in Egypt in 2011, in Bahrain, in Libya, and other protests take place during that time. But after the protests began in Syria in March of 2011, and it turned into increased violence against protesters, we did not go a single week, I think the rest of my time in college, without a question about the uptick in violence, political prisoners, the hundreds of thousands and millions who were displaced during that time. And it had only gotten worse in the decades since I graduated. And with all of the national, international news, this was one that I think a lot of people maybe did not expect but really celebrated. And I think a lot of people are now wondering what comes next. Because in all of those cases, Tunisia, Egypt, right, the pathway forward after the toppling of a dictator, after the ending of years of conflict and violence, it is, I mean, anything but easy. But this moment and the joy that you saw in those people celebrating out was palpable, because this news has, I think, gone reported, underreported, reported again, and then back to the back pages for so many over the last decade plus. So I'm so glad you pointed to this story. Every single episode of CityCast Chicago ends the exact same way, and that's with some good news. This can be an event coming up this weekend, something personal happening in our lives, but we just want to end every episode with a little bit of joy. And so, Emmeline, start us off. What is your good news for CityCast Chicago today?
All right, I love this question. My good news for CityCast Chicago is that I bit the bullet and made my first flan, and it turned out pretty good. And I'm excited to continue finessing my flan for friends, family, neighbors, anybody who will eat it. So I'm happy about it.
Tell me more. There feels like there's a story in here. There feels like there was a start and stop, maybe a little bit of doubt at some point, working your way up to it. Tell me this story of when did you know you wanted to make this, and what was that process like? I've seen pictures, I've tasted it, but I've never actually thought about what it takes to make one.
Okay, you know what? I have never considered myself a baker,
okay.
But I've slowly been like creating a little repertoire of desserts that I can make without baking. And you know what it came down to? I'm trying to clear out my pantry because I'm in the middle of moving. And I had a can of condensed milk I needed to do something with. Mm-hmm. And I was like, what can I do with this? And lo and behold, I had eggs. I had everything I needed to make it. Sugar, eggs, vanilla extract, some orange zest. And so I was like, all right, what the heck? We're making it.
I'm sure there are a bunch of people listening who are experimenting with some baking projects this time of the year. Emmeline, what's going to be your next challenge?
Oh, I don't know. That's TBD. I think I got to perfect this now. Try out different variations.
Katrina, over to you. What is your good news for us today?
So my good news is that there's a really exciting event happening this Saturday from the Japanese American Service Committee, and they are hosting their 44th annual Holiday Delight and Kodomo Matsuri event at their new building, which I think is really exciting because they were in an old warehouse for 55 years in Uptown. It was on Clark and Montrose, and when I spoke to members from the JASC, they were kind of just talking about how the old building wasn't really a safe place for them, wasn't a safe place for the archives, and they weren't really able to serve people in the community in the way they wanted to. So now they have this big new building on Lincoln Avenue, has big glass windows and just a lot of new furniture and space. And it's exciting because they're going to be able to expand a lot of their services, like their daycare for older adults, and other cooking classes and ways for people to engage with Japanese culture, and also for Japanese Americans to connect and find community. So this event is kind of like the kickoff of the new space, because the space is opening this week. So I think that's something that's super cool and exciting, and something that I love seeing because I always pass it on my way to work.
Oh, dope as hell. Thank you for putting it on our radar. What can people expect if they pull up on the Holiday Delight?
I think there's going to be a lot of cool things there based on the promotion. They've been talking about how they're having vendors, food court, and also other Japanese like cultural performances. They mentioned having Japanese drumming, Japanese dance, ikebana, which is flower arranging, and other crafts from their children's programs. Also, a special appearance from Santa himself. So
no, yes,
they got connections.
Hey, Santa been working hard out here from the holiday train all the way up to Uptown at the JASC's new building on 5700 North Lincoln. We'll drop a link in our show notes. And if you can't pull up, they also have a silent auction going down that you can participate on either in person or online. So learn more. And if you're looking for more events, we always got them for you at chicago.citycast.fm. They're curated by our fantastic Hey Chicago newsletter editor, Sydney Madden. So check those goes out. I'm going to finish you off with 2 events that I am looking forward to and I'm going to be pulling up on this weekend. The first one is happening tonight at Elephant Room Gallery. They're holding their 15-year anniversary show from 6 to 10 p.m. featuring a whole bunch of amazing Chicago artists. Just an excuse to get outside, see some great painting, some great craft making. Shout out to the homie Lo Marie for putting me on. She is one of my favorite artists. I own at least 10 of her pieces, and so I'm probably going to pick up something tonight as well. And then tomorrow morning, my goal is to stop in for the grand opening of Planks and Pistols. They have a flower stand opening up inside of Drip Collective Coffee in Fulton Market. And if people are not familiar with Planks and Pistols, please go to the show notes, follow their Instagram, follow their website. Chicago-based artist who puts together these beautiful, even feels like an understatement, but these flower arrangements that have really unique like pots. They come in various sizes. You can get a subscription, but the art arrangements are art themselves. I don't want to spoil it for some people, but this might be my holiday gift for a few VIPs in my life. So to just put that out for y'all. But these are 2 events that I'm really excited and looking forward to. So I'm going to drop them in our show notes for you. I can't leave today without giving a huge thank you to our guest today from Borderless Magazine, audience engagement reporter, Katrina Pham. Katrina, thank you so much for being back with us.
Much love. Thanks for having me.
And Emmeline Posner, investigative reporter with Investigative Project on Race and Equity. Thank you so much for making time for CityCast Chicago.
Thanks so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Before we get out of here, I just want to give you another reminder. Today is the final day of our end of the year membership campaign. We appreciate every single person who has signed up this week, every person who has become a member in 2024. We see you. We appreciate you. Today is your last day to sign up and not only get that ad-free listening and that events email directly in your inbox and perks you can get all year long, but today is the last day to sign up to get that all black sleek with the zipper tote bag to take with you into the coldest days of the year. If you've been listening to this all week and you thought to yourselves, hey, I appreciate what y'all do. I love the work y'all do, but I'm real protective about my coin. I can't give it out everywhere. Hey, I understand. I appreciate you. If you're listening to this and you're on the fence, I know this is the time of the year where you are being asked from a lot of different organizations, a lot of different people, a lot of different GoFundMes. You counting your coin for gifts. I know it's hard to give it out. And so my real ask is you give it to someone doing good work in the city of Chicago, somebody surviving in the city of Chicago, even if that's not us. I know they don't really want me to say that. I've been saying all week to give it to us, but I'm just hoping you can support someone. And if you got it in your heart and in your wallet to support CityCast Chicago, starting at just $8 a month, or you can toss us $80 for the whole year. Not only are we going to throw you them perks, but you going to know that you helping Chicago's best daily podcast, best daily newsletter to keep doing the work that we love, that y'all love, and hold us down into this new year. We really appreciate it. The people behind this podcast and newsletter, I can't go another minute without thanking them. And so please join me in thanking our executive producer, Simone Alisea, our producer, Michelle Navarro, our Hey Chicago newsletter editor, Sydney Madden, our roving producers, Francisco Kilgore, our roving newsletter editor is Natalie Rivera. All the music we love is from the homie Sam Thousand. All the kimonos and Mark Greenberg from the Mayfair Workshop. And I want to give a special shout out to our director of membership, Hannah Rose. We appreciate all the work you're doing, not only with our little team here in Chicago, but with all of the CityCast cities across the country. We really appreciate you. And my last thank you, as it is every single day, every single week, is for you. This is the coolest job I've ever had in my life. And I just want to keep doing it with and for this team, all the people who listen, all the people who gon' listen. And so, yeah, that's my spiel for the day. That's my spiel for the week. I am going to go take a nap now. I'll talk to you on Monday. Peace. We got them bags. Come get them bags. This is the last day for them bags.